Our guest today is Mike Nash, and he is a management consultant and business coach. He is neurodivergent himself. He is based in Dallas, Texas, and he has big plans for the future, which today he's gonna tell us about. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you anything you want. Let me you guide this. Well, it'll be a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you very much for being here. You're very welcome to talk about your group because you said you want to make a group that is special for veterans who are neurodivergent. So, this is an amazing and fascinating concept to me. I would like to hear how did you come to this idea? How did it develop?
Well, I've heard from other people before, other coaches, consultants, that we are often best qualified to help the earlier version of ourselves. If you are on a journey, you're on a path, somebody that is walking, a very similar path, you can help guide them along. And so I didn't intend to to do what I'm doing now, but I guess in some ways, even since I was young, I knew I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. I just thought I wanted to, teach American history in high school and, coach, football. But I have found myself in all the roles that I've done, whether it be in the military, in corporate, running my own business, that I've been doing some sort of teaching and coaching. And so that part's always been there. But when it comes to who I feel most qualified to help along their journey, it's been people that have are going through things like I've been. It was the transitioning veteran. And so that's where I actually got my start, was helping veterans transition out of the military, off of active duty, and into civilian life. And that's where my journey of coaching started. Then it just happened to be that I, studied business, got pretty good at it, was helping and consulting, and then I found those, and then the same thing for the neurodivergence.
Okay, so who is this group for? Because I mean, there are many people out there who might now think, "Oh, that could be something for me," but where would you draw a line? I mean, like for example, if somebody is neurodivergent and they have CPTSD, maybe not from combat because they're not exactly veterans, but from another kind of incident in their life. Would those people also fit into your group, or would you say, no, this is strictly for veterans? How do you define the whole thing?
That's a great question. So, um, I would take probably the most broad approach to be more inclusive. Um, whatever psychology group or manual, the way that they define neurodivergent, usually includes ADD, ADHD, OCD, dyslexia, autism, and I feel like I'm forgetting one other. But you don't necessarily need to be diagnosed. You could be misdiagnosed, undiagnosed. You could be medicated, unmedicated, self-medicated. I don't really care. It's more of just realizing that we share something in common, that our brains operate a little different. And for that part, I'm also not trying to, I'm definitely not diagnosing or trying to cure anybody. I don't think that you're broken. It's more of just a community of people who think a little bit differently than many others. So there's the neurodivergent piece. When it comes to your question about PTSD, very similar. That it does not that the work that I've done to help people overcome their struggles with post traumatic stress. Also, not a therapist. Um, it doesn't matter if it is combat related or not. It doesn't matter if you're military. The experience of post traumatic stress and then the opportunity to experience post traumatic growth can happen for anybody. And it, whether it was a car accident or, the loss of a loved one, or any significant change in life, we can share a lot of those, um, the way that it made us feel. So, yeah, I would say my ability to add value to people in that space definitely spans both of them. The specific group that I'm creating right now is for veteran entrepreneurs, that probably more identify, regardless of any diagnosis, that are looking to grow, scale, maybe even launch their business, and are looking for some support. So that was a long way for me to say the a very broad spectrum would be most inclusive. I'm not trying to be like, sorry, you don't qualify.
I want to stay a little with the whole trauma thing because there is
Okay.
this big word called trauma informed, and I think that when people come together from very different directions, with different backgrounds, with different histories, it is very, very tough to put them into one group. And I say this because I experienced this myself. I wanted to join a group, and I thought that this was a group that was for survivors of coercive control, for survivors of being a targeted individual and stuff like that. And then I found myself in a group that was basically a lot of men crying about how they were abused by their ex-wives and how they feel let down by the systems, judicial systems, etc., in fighting for their children during this divorce and stuff like that. So I found myself in a completely different group than I actually expected. And I found, oh, I don't really fit there because I have a completely different background and different problem. And that is why I wanted to see, how do you personally define, oh, these are indicators that my group is going the right way and it's very homogeneous. And these are indicators where my group might drift into the wrong direction. So how do you divide these two?
Mm, no, no, great point. Managing group dynamics is can be incredibly complicated. And it's like you want to be inclusive, you want people to um, be able to get some value out of it, but you also want people to feel safe, make sure people can feel seen and heard. And not everybody has the self-awareness to do that. And that is something that is very important. So you need to protect the group while also protecting the individuals of the group. So yeah, I think that's one of that's one of the things that I've probably struggled with in creating group coaching cohorts, is making sure that you're bringing the right people together and not just taking somebody who, um, you know, is looking for a place to belong, or in my coaching scenarios, looking to, hey, I want some help and I'm willing to pay. So yeah, managing group dynamics is vital. And it sounds like in your situation, you if you don't become more selective, that there's probably more problems to be had, especially when dealing with things like trauma.
What is going to be the backbone structure of this group? Is it going to be like, okay, you make a meeting once a month where you and the group come together online and you will speak for 10 minutes about something, and then the group members can ask questions, or how is it structured, the whole thing?
So this group specifically will have probably, I don't know, three tiers, three layers. There will be the freemium, I think is the word that we use, where it doesn't cost to join, or if it's helpful, there might be like a super nominal fee just to keep what I call the riffraff out. Some of these online communities, if you let everyone in, there are people sometimes that are just using that as an opportunity to like spam folks. And so, it might be something like $9 or something a month just to make sure it creates a little bit of a boundary from those. But basically, the idea is I don't want cost to be a barrier for anyone to show up and be able to get some value. So a little bit more than watching a YouTube channel where there's at least some interaction with the host, myself, and I'm producing content and interacting with the community at a, free or very close to free level. And then above that, there would be group coaching cohorts, whereas we create smaller groups where people have enough, like we were talking about before, enough similarity, can add value to one another, and there is more value to be in the group cohort. There would be some opportunity for people to self-identify that, hey, I would like to participate in one of these group cohorts. Share with me, please, the details about cost, timing, cadence. And then there would be one-on-one. If someone wanted to work with me directly and work through these things, whether it be working through some of the trauma, dialing in your neurodivergent or things about your neurodivergence to help you win as an entrepreneur, that's where it would be. So freemium, group coaching, and then individual coaching is the idea of the group.
Are you a neurodivergent in the sense of you have ADHD? That's how far I got. That's what you have as a diagnosis. But did you also experience trauma during combat or anywhere else where you would say, okay, I've got an extra diagnosis with CPTSD? Or would you say, no, I don't know that from my own experience, but I have worked with many, many clients who have that, and I could help them in a certain way. So where is the basis or the anchoring in you? How does it go together with the group that you're going to lead later on?
Yeah, yes, and so I was first diagnosed with post-traumatic stress and then later diagnosed with adult ADHD, or late diagnosed with ADHD. So there are some things that, if it was a Venn diagram, there's definitely a little bit of overlap with some of these things, to include, traumatic brain injury, which can also happen from, certain types of trauma. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on. And there's some element there's a very important part of self-awareness, understanding, like, some people get a lot of healing just from a diagnosis, if that makes sense. It's just no, like, I remember the first time I worked with a mental health professional that explained to me what had physiologically changed in my brain from my traumatic experiences in combat. And in a way, it gave me permission to feel the way that I felt without shame or guilt. And that alone was freeing in a way, to know, oh, this is why I feel this way. And to also know that that didn't make me weak. It actually proved that I wasn't a sociopath or a psychopath. It's like, if I hadn't responded, if my body had not responded the way that it did to the experiences that I had, that would be a bigger problem. You know what I mean? So it was a very, very healing experience. It was still, painful and traumatic to learn those things, but leaning into it, it was also very helpful. So this is where I have to be very careful, not being a mental health professional, that I'm not trying to diagnose, cure anything. That's more of the understanding. And some of that happens in stories. It happens in, correlation and relation. It's like, I often recommend, whenever we get a little deeper, I'm like, that's something you probably need to work with a mental health professional, to whether it's going for a diagnosis or not. I'll give an example. I had a coaching client that at the very beginning, he was sharing the struggles he was having with sales in his business. And he was the person that was primarily responsible for the sales. And I mentioned to him that in many cases, if somebody goes from being, say, a rock star performer, especially in sales, to then struggling, that often there is a change in belief. And it's either a belief in what they are selling or a belief in themselves. And when digging a little deeper into this, he told me that he had experienced severe trauma just the past year, where one of the people he was working with ended up committing suicide. And he was taking on some of that emotionally. He felt some guilt, that what if, a lot of the what ifs that we deal with ourselves, I should have done this or I should have noticed that. Um, and that was clear for me. Like, I was able to identify that there was a change without even knowing him very well in his behavior that gave me a clue to what might be going on. And I was spot on. I remember him saying, he's like, how did you do that in like less than 15 minutes? How did you pull that out of me? And that's good coaching. But he needed help that I'm not qualified to assist with. And so I was like, hey, I'm sure I really could help you with your business and through business coaching, but I think that's something you need to work with a mental health professional is to talk through that, maybe deal with the grief and the loss associated with it. And so, although I was able to pick up on something, I knew that was outside of my lane of professional skills, talents, abilities, and qualifications.
So, is there a possibility? Because when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking of a lot of people are going to probably come and ask you, hey, do you maybe have an Excel data list where you have listed all of the people that are great for these other kind of things, the things that you cannot provide for them? Like, for example, that you get a word of mouth kind of list where you say, okay,
Hmm.
this and that therapist has been coming up a lot as a very good therapist in that region. So are you going to make something like a list of the best therapists that are told?
That would probably be wise of me, but I'm also curious about, how far I should go with that. As a business coach, if somebody needs help with marketing, branding, sales, accounting, tax, things like that, I absolutely have the people that I highly recommend and I go to. I even have, like, I don't have it published on my website, but I do have a space where I go into what I call it's a Canva whiteboard where I zoom in and I'm like, hey, this is the person. Here's their contact information. I highly recommend, this person does wonders with, tax mitigation or website building, whatever it is. When it comes to the mental health stuff, I don't know how far down that recommendation I would go. I would say, hey, here's somebody I know is really great. But I would probably leave maybe a little more of the work to them. Maybe I don't recommend as highly. I don't know. If one of your listeners or you has a recommendation on where that threshold is, I'd be like, hey, I know they're qualified, but because of the nature where it's so private, these things happen behind closed doors. I can't vouch for that person the way that I could for, someone who I know has all these amazing stories of, reducing taxes for business owners. So yeah, I think I would probably just like, hey, very, very surface level. I know of a person and I know they're a great human being. I can't vouch for how good of work they've done because I haven't experienced it.
That's okay. So what I'm also interested in, because you mentioned it, you mentioned the physiological changes in the brain.
Mhm.
Now, of course, they can come both from experiencing physical trauma, but also they can come from experiencing emotional trauma.
Mhm.
So I personally, they made an MRI of my brain and they said, okay, you have a hippocampus sclerosis, but it didn't really go into why. The only information that I have onto why is from ChatGPT. What did they tell you about your diagnosis, if you want to open up and share that? And how did it affect you in your healing journey, knowing this?
Regardless of what the changes were or what anybody might be dealing with, I think understanding the idea of neuroplasticity and that your brain can change and that it can respond to trauma and it can respond to healing is the thing that's probably most important for people to know, whether it's a certain part of the brain or it's how you're thinking, or even if you never know what is actually going on inside your body. Maybe it's hormone levels. That has been a journey that I've been on recently. Something that they found in my brain was a pituitary adenoma on my pituitary gland. Yeah, so there's an adenoma, a tumor on my pituitary gland, and it was causing hormonal issues. Thankfully for me, it hasn't been growing. I get the MRIs done and it can be managed with medication. So, what helped me again by learning what was going on physiologically, it gave me permission. It took away the guilt and the shame of how I was feeling. So, um, whatever you do, I think it's really important for people to lean into understanding their body and to learning. And once you realize things like the brain science and the biology of how our body operates and how it's trying to heal itself. And sometimes it needs a little bit of help, that things can get out of whack, whether it be, based upon trauma or diet or whatever. We should be doing a better job taking care of this bag of bones that we have. I don't know about you, but I don't believe that I have a soul. I believe my soul has a body. I am that energy, that thing, and this is just the sack of flesh and blood that's carrying it around. And it's the only one that I get, and I feel like I wish I would have done a better job taking better care of it earlier. So I highly recommend people understand, get blood work done, understand more about the science and biology behind what's going on with this thing we call a body.
I think what you just said is very important to stress because um, I think that's one of the biggest gifts of having trauma in your life, having CPTSD and all of that, is that it opens up your brain or your mind to another state of being. It opens up the idea, maybe I am not this body. Maybe I am a living consciousness, a consciousness that is
Hmm.
forever, that is living forever. And for a certain period of time, I have a body, which is basically something that I learn to identify with, but it is simply something like a car. When I step into my car and I drive somewhere, I am not the car. I just use the car
Hmm.
to get from point A to
Yeah.
point B. And I think that is one of the biggest gifts I got from having trauma is that I do not identify as much with the physiological body. I identify more with my soul and with my mind.
Hmm.
And that is something that is also, I think, a little bit in the autism because I have autism too. And the autism generally lets you have a smaller identification with the body from the very day you're born. So I can
Mm.
remember when I was a child, I looked at myself like, what is this? And why are there five little sausages hanging off it? What is this even? So I remember that I consciously felt I actually don't belong in here. It is a bit weird, you know. I always felt a little bit
Oh,
separated, you know. And they later they told me, okay,
wow.
this is an effect of trauma. But I think in a person that has autism, this is already like a core trait of us that we have this possibility to exit the body and this possibility to feel. I can basically, you know, even at night while you sleep, you can, they say that your soul leaves your body and hovers a little bit above your body while you sleep, and then it goes back in again to fully be immersed in that body. And also, of
Mm.
course, when you experience death, then of course the soul lifts out and goes elsewhere because it's not in its physical form. It's basically in the form of vibration and light and all of these other things, things that are not visible to the human eye, like for example, the sound waves or something. Yeah, typical
Hmm.
something that is still there but not visible to the human eye. And so this is, I think, one of the most important gifts of the whole thing, where we can say we are actually can be glad to have this experience, even though it's sometimes painful, but this is a big gift. What would you say, what is your biggest gift of the whole thing? What comes to your mind? It doesn't just have to be one thing, can be different things, where you
Mm.
say that is the biggest gift that I have from actually having all of these positive and negative experiences of my life.
Mine would be very similar. It was a group therapy that I was doing at the VA whenever an amazing therapist was explaining to me that I am not my thoughts and that I am not my body, that I am the observer. And that idea of the three selves, the thinking self, the beings, the physical self, and then the observer. And he's like, where do they think these thoughts come from? It's like that some things just pop in your head. It's like the brain is not me. The brain is part of the body that's doing a job. It's a problem solver. It's trying to keep me alive. learning those things, that was a shock. I'm like, wait, I'm not my brain. I'm not my thoughts. I am. And so tying that idea of the observing self to the idea of spirit, of a soul, of a being, that 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 was a game changer for me. And it put me on a journey of personal and professional growth and development. Maybe dare I say, enlightenment. I used to be a pretty hardcore, um, you know, I identified a few ways. I was a soldier for sure. I was a Christian. I was conservative. I had these ideas that I grew up with and and many of them I chose. But then going through those things, I realized that these were programs, that these were, other people's beliefs that had been shared with me, and I chose some of them, I rejected others, but they were all choices that I had now. And to lean into the idea of learning and reading and being open-minded to the idea that maybe the things that I've believed or thought I believed or thought were true or thought were right, maybe not all of it is.
So
That idea opened up all the others for me. The
yes.
the books that I read, the studies that I've done, the research that I've made, all of it came from this idea that I am not my thoughts and I am not my body. I am the observer of it, and I
Yes.
am this being, this soul. So yeah.
What you just said is actually the concept of a human being being multidimensional. The reason
Hmm.
why we can observe our body working and our mind thinking is because we are part of something bigger, our higher self, we could say. So
Hmm.
only a fractal of us is here, and other fractals of us, of our higher self, can live at the same time on different planets, different realms. So basically, we are fractals. It's like God has split himself up into thousands and thousands of beings on different planets to experience something different at the same time. So this is why I believe a human being is actually multidimensional. So we have a higher self that we're connected to always, but definitely we also can experience being the observer, being in the position of the higher self, watching the lower self, lower not in the sense of being worthless or something, but
Hmm.
lower in the self of living here in this body. Just like we could be a leaf that is part of an entire tree, and the leaf, for most of its life, it doesn't know it's part of a tree. Yeah, but maybe one day it becomes conscious and it sees, oh wow, I'm actually a leaf on a twig on the trunk on the in the ground, and then you
Yeah.
start going out from there, and maybe if I'm connected to the earth over the roots, then maybe I'm the entire earth. So it goes on and on, yeah, once you've looked inside this Pandora's box, basically.
The very first viral video I ever had started with me sharing that after 24 years of being in the military, I've turned into a bit of a hippie. That was the opening line. I didn't realize that it was an amazing hook for a video. It was just what came out. And a lot of people resonated with that. I used to think things like, uh, you know, astrology was very like, all right, that's, crazy hippie ladies that are into the moon and the stars. And I'm like, oh wow, maybe there is something to this. Maybe it's not as nutty as I thought it was before. And now that I started leaning into those things and understanding that your thoughts have power, that that we manifest things, all of that stuff, I found incredibly fascinating and enjoyable to lean into.
Yes, I am completely okay with having the role of the woo-woo lady, I'm perfectly
Yeah.
fine if somebody calls me weird or psychic or whatever. So I don't
Well,
mind.
but imagine someone with my background leaning
Yes.
into that, and how weird people look at me. I have, people that, are from the church, if you will, that think I've, lost my soul and I've been possessed because, I'm open-minded to the idea that, and it's not even like anti-Christianity. I'm like, I think it's the same God that, they created the heavens and the earth. Who's to say that they didn't make all of those other things that other people see a different way? Like it doesn't
Exactly.
contradict.
Yes.
I feel like these things coexist, and I'm like, maybe there's just, more to what's going on here than what you've been taught in your little system. And yeah, I catch a lot of grief for things like that. That to be that guy, to be the guy that used to, carry a machine gun and jump out of planes looking for bad guys like that. That's a little bit like, all right, now I'm a little more spiritual. It's yeah, I
Because
catch a lot of grief for it, but I'm okay with it.
I come from a very scientific background. I studied pharmacy for 12 years and I worked in my father's pharmacy. And I was always the person with the white coat that everybody trusted with their questions around medication. So, of course, people didn't understand what's happening, that suddenly I am into tarot cards and whatever. Of course, it was a big, huge break in the whole identity. And that made people afraid and sometimes even hostile, as you said it. So, as we have only got 6 minutes and 27 seconds left, I wanted to give you the last word so that you can say the final words. What would you say? What would you wish for the entire Earth to have? So, now is your time to actually manifest something positive on Earth with your words.
Mm.
So, I give you the stage. What would you like Earth to be like?
I heard somebody ask something kind of similar, and it giggled because I was like, if I could communicate to everybody on Earth, if this thing went absolutely viral, I would teach people how to merge into traffic. Like, just like the drivers that pissed me, I'm like, you're doing it wrong. This is how you do. Yeah, I lose my cool in traffic. I'm like, learn how to drive. So if you gave me an opportunity to speak to everybody, I might waste it. I might waste it on telling people to learn how to drive and to get out of my way,
You mean the
to
zip
merge
line
merge.
system, like the zipper system?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
people
okay.
don't zipper. Or when they do the turns in the middle, everybody does this instead of like crisscrossing. I don't know. I'm being a little silly. The joke was that if everybody could learn something from me, I'd teach them something that actually doesn't really mean anything, but just would make me feel better because I get so frustrated with simple things like traffic. No, I that is not what I would want to share with the world if everybody was listening to me. Um, I don't know. I'd probably say things like be kinder to one another. Everybody's going through some stuff. Um, I saw a really cute cartoon recently. I think it was like it wasn't Hopper, it was Swapped or something like that, where these creatures got to experience life as other creatures. Like the rabbit got to be a bird and the bird got to be a fish. And the whole point of it is that we would better understand what people are going through if we walked in their shoes for a little while. And so, um, be kinder to one another. Life is hard enough as it is. So that would be something that I hope people would, if they were to take something from me, um, be open-minded that maybe what you think you know ain't so. That's there, and to be kinder to yourself. I don't know about you, but I am so stinking hard on myself. I beat myself up for stuff that I have no control over, or I forget that I did my best, even if my best today wasn't as good as my best yesterday. Dang, stop being so damn hard on yourselves and to one another. That's those are
Wonderful.
the things that those are the things that jumped out at me. Be kinder to one another, be kinder to yourself. Um, learn, grow. Professionally, I'd say if you're doing something you hate, quit. Life is too stinking short. I don't know if you've been blessed to talk to older people much, but when you talk to somebody that's getting, closer to the end, they see the world differently. And uh yeah, be kinder
Wonderful.
to one another, be kinder to yourself.
So I would say amen, Yeshua, to that. Be kind to
Yeah.
yourself and be kind to others. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope we can repeat it someday.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.